The Supreme Court will now have to take a decision on whether there was a Shivling and a mandir at what is the Gyanvapi Mosque in Varanasi in Uttar Pradesh today. This is the big story that we're looking at. The center has asked for one more day to establish its response, as the plaintiff's lawyer has in fact been hospitalized due to a heart attack. However, Justice Chandrachud, while hearing the petition from Muslim groups who are asking for a status quo and are protesting the survey that was allowed at the complex recently, Justice Chandrachud has said that while namaz prayers at the Gyanvapi Mosque will not be stopped, the area where what the Hindu groups are calling a Shivling stands and the Muslim groups are calling a fountain will continue to remain secure and sealed off. Now, remember, there is a law, the Places of Worship Act, that is at the center of this debate. Though, of course, the BJP and the Modi government could choose, if they so decide, to amend this law in Parliament. It's unclear what the centre will do because the Solicitor General Tushar Mehta has asked for one more day to file a detailed response in the Supreme Court. Looking at both the history, the law, and the politics of this sensitive issue, let's introduce our panel of experts today. We're joined by Ms. Tripta Wahi, who's, of course, one of our best-known historians. Welcome to the program, ma'am. We're also joined on the program today by Islamic scholar Faizur Rahman, who has recently penned several pieces on this in the Indian Express, among other platforms. We're also joined on the program today by Dr. Ratan Sharda, who's, of course, an author and a political analyst. Namaskar, sir. Welcome to the program. Also joining us is Rahul Dev, a veteran journalist and political analyst. Namaskar, Rahul ji. Welcome to the program. And Sanjoy Ghose, who's, of course, one of our best-known lawyers, a senior advocate practicing in the Supreme Court, is with us as well. Welcome, everybody, to the program. Rahul ji, I would like to start with you. आपसे शुरू करना चाहूंगी. This feels like a kind of Ayodhya deja vu moment. And in fact, Justice Chandrachud, who is hearing this petition, is of course also seen to be one of the key authors of the Ayodhya verdict. How far do you think, अगर मैं पहले इसकी राजनीति देखूं, how far do you think politically the BJP will be ready, willing to go on this issue?
How far will it be going in this issue is something that only people connected with BJP can clarify, but I don't see the possibility of its BJP backing down on it and not trying to sort of promote this issue or to sort of make it bigger for very clear reasons. And I also do see a parallel between the Ayodhya issue and this issue and the next likely issue of Mathura. So, this is all we understand. These issues are a mixture of politics, history, faith, and law. Now, it's a very potent mix. Sometimes it becomes a dangerous mix, but as reality, we know this nexus or these four factors will always remain in play together. So it remains to be seen what view ultimately the Supreme Court takes on this. It has several matters before it. It has a challenge to the 1991 Act, and I would expect the Supreme Court to deliver its judgment on this issue as fast as possible, as soon as possible, given the circumstances we are in today, and given the implications of delay. Any delay will only increase the complications and complicate the matter further. So it will be good if the Supreme Court realizes the importance, the political as well as social implications of all these matters put together, and takes a view on that challenge as well as on Gyanvapi issue.
Yeah. And Justice Chandrachud has already spoken, Rahul, interestingly, in court of a short hearing. While the hearing is, of course, continuing, I don't see this carrying on, as you said, for years and years altogether. But as you said, this is a mix of politics, of law, of faith, of identity, of many reasons. But before I open this up and we are able to reconnect with Dr. Ratan Sharda as well, I want to ask you, Rahul, you've been studying politics for so long. यूपी का चुनाव खत्म हो चुका है. There's no imminent election as such coming up. What do you think explains the timing of why this has become such a hot potato issue at this hour, or this time in our political calendar, as it were, Rahul?
Its reason is very clear. Firstly, we are in a situation in the country where the end of one state election doesn't mean the other states are not in the immediate pre-election mode or in election mode, or they are going to be in election mode very soon. So election is now an annual affair in India, unfortunately. That means we given and this interconnected world with super active social media, whatever happens in one state immediately becomes national and pan-national, even global the next day. So these old boundaries are now long gone.
Yeah.
Secondly, the Ayodhya, Kashi, and Mathura have been on the list of Vishwa Hindu Parishad and Hindu organizations for a very, very long time together. They constitute a set of issues or set of temples which have been at the core of, I would say, Hindu mobilization. So Ayodhya has been resolved. So it was very but natural to expect that the issue of Gyanvapi and Mathura will come up as quite soon, which they have, and we have two or three other claims as well now being sort of actively promoted and in public space. So
Yeah.
it's very natural. This is the politics as we know it, and I don't
Yeah.
expect it to change anytime soon.
Now, what's important to mention before I open this up and bring in Ratanji, is that one of the surveyors has in fact been removed. The court has not taken kindly to him leaking information to the media. Let's also show you the images that are at the heart of what has happened in the last few days. We have the Hindu petitioners in the Supreme Court basically arguing that a Shivling has been found in the survey, evidence that there was a temple here. The Muslim groups are saying that these are parts of what used to be a water fountain, and where the sort of ritual ablutions or the washing used to happen. And Justice Chandrachud of the Supreme Court is upholding that the area where what the Hindu groups are calling the Shivling has been found will remain secure and sealed, and the other areas will allow the namaz to continue. And this is at the heart of what is now the dispute, but one of the surveyors has in fact been removed. Dr. Sharda, I'd like to get you in and then bring in the others. There was an expectation that once the Ayodhya verdict came, the BJP would not really pursue Kashi, Mathura, would not really pursue Gyanvapi. I was trying to understand from Rahulji also, why is it so important? Why was Ayodhya, in a sense, not a pause politically for the BJP? Why is this issue important? As I asked him, the election is over. This would only inflame sentiments more. Why is this important in your estimation to the BJP? Sir, अपने आप को unmute कर दीजिए, sir. Please unmute yourself.
Barkha, thanks for inviting me. First
Yes.
of all, let us keep this issue a little away from politics. The issue that has cropped up in Gyanvapi has no link to BJP. It is the local people who have gone to the court for an order which was contained by the Mulayam Singh government of stopping the regular worship in Shringar Gauri temple in Kashi. Before that, it was open. That is one thing. Secondly, if you say why and why politics, I will very clearly tell you that in 1990s, when negotiations were going on, RSS, VHP had clearly said 3 temples and no other temple claim will be made because these are most sacred temples for us, Kashi, Vishwanath, Mathura and Ayodhya. Having done that, the Muslim side, instigated by the so-called eminent left historians, saying that even Ayodhya is fake, they did not allow that settlement to happen. Now, having solved the Ayodhya issue, the people of India have known that the history of being fed to them by the eminent historians about Aurangzeb being a great king and no atrocities done on Hindus, no temples are broken, which goes against the very folklore, the very history, the very documents given by the Islamic historians themselves. There is a book by Sitaram Goel which lists out 200 temples which have got proofs by the Islamic evidence. If that is so, the idea of sanitizing history, idea of putting a lid on the top of a huge civilization and wound that Hindus suffer of 1,000 year persecution, killings, rapes, conversions, that was tried to be covered up by band-aids when the cancerous wound was very deep. Ideally, Muslim community should have sat with Hindus. The ruling people should have tried to have a truth and reconciliation commission, which has never done. It has been done all over the world. Why
Yeah.
in India we are so afraid of the truth? If
Can
that
I,
is
can
so, some of the other
yes.
will go to the courts. If
Can
one
I?
party can go to the
I
court, I
actually,
can also go to court.
I actually agree with you that perhaps the one solution going forward is a Truth and Reconciliation Commission, so that there is a ceiling on the number of such cases that land up in court. But when you say it has nothing to do with the BJP, I will respectfully disagree, Dr. Ratan Sharda, because one of the petitioners is an Ayodhya-based spokesperson of the BJP, and we have seen strong and, in fact, controversial statements of support from office bearers of the BJP. The Deputy Chief Minister of Uttar Pradesh, Keshav Prasad Maurya, has even given a very contentious statement where he's associated Shiv with the truth instead of Lord Shiva, that is. And Sangeet Som is another BJP leader who has spoken about literally a statement that uses the language of violence. So, how do you separate it from the politics of the BJP, Dr. Sharda?
See, politicians will jump into any controversy which helps them. You cannot stop it. Even in the case of Ram Temple, Advani ji entered the arena much later. And if you look at Congress, they are already saying that the what is found in Kashi and Gyanvapi is a fountain. Have they checked it? Have they seen anything? Why should Congress jump into this? This idea of somehow supporting the so-called frightened minority when there is no fight anywhere, there is no struggle anywhere. This idea of secularism being only the lodestar for Hindus and everybody else can go to court, stop any kind of justice to Hindus, is what creates this kind of rift when every politician will try to jump in. Ideally, why it was done? Because if you remember, as I said, even in 1990, the community should have met. They have said they sat down, but there were people who were non-politicians but who stopped the settlement. When everybody says that courts are open, we should follow the law, then any Hindu can go to the court like any Muslim. Ideally, as
Okay.
I said, see, my last point is that why the politics, when we say that Muslims have links with the invaders like Aurangzeb, we are actually giving a bad name to Muslims. Are the Indian Muslims coming, are the progenies of the Mughals? They are not. They also suffered like we suffered, Hindus suffered. So for them to identify with the invaders is the first biggest disservice that secular
But
lobby has
but
done.
but I
Once
just
they
want to.
agree that we are part of the same community,
I
settlement can be arrived.
I also would say that Indian Muslims should not be made to answer for what Aurangzeb did or didn't. But I just want to read out to you a statement that Keshav Prasad Maurya made in an interview to India TV, where he said, even if you dig in Mecca, Lord Mahadev will appear. This is a rough English translation. So all I'm saying, Dr. Sharda, with respect, is that BJP's politics are very involved. Maybe central politics we don't know yet. We will get to know when the Solicitor General establishes a clear response. But certainly UP politicians are jumping up and speaking in this language. I now want to bring in Sanjoy on this. Now, there is a Places of Worship Act. Quite simply, what it does is basically says that what was a particular place of worship in 1947, that cannot be changed. The exception, of course, is what is now the Ram Mandir, what was once known as the Babri Masjid. Sanjoy, do you see the court applying the sort of Places of Worship Act in their application to this case? Or do you think the fact that Justice Chandrachud has already said that where the Shivling, what the Hindu groups call the Shivling, the Muslim groups call a fountain, will be protected, means the Places of Worship Act is not being applied by the court here prima facie?
Well, that's an interesting question, Barkha. First of all, you said that the Ram Janmabhoomi judgment, Justice Chandrachud was involved in authoring the judgment. Well, as you know, the Ram Janmabhoomi judgment has no author or declared author, because we still don't know officially who is the person who authored that
Correct.
judgment.
Correct.
But of course, we all in the legal community know who has authored the judgment, but we cannot, it's our guess, so we can't tell you
Okay.
who has done so. But interestingly, I have the copy of the judgment in Ram Janmabhumi's case, and there extensively the people's this act which you are talking about, the Places of Worship Act, is talked about. And if you will permit me, I'll just read one sentence of what the Ram Janmabhoomi judgment itself talks about this act. It says, and I'm just reading, the law is hence a legislative instrument designed to protect the secular features of the Indian polity, which is one of the basic features of the Constitution. Non-retrogression is a foundational feature of the fundamental constitutional principles of which secularism is a core component. So this is what the Ram Janmabhoomi judgment, which I'm sure a lot of people will be relying on, is talking about the Places of Worship Act. It says that non-retrogression is the norm, and it reflects, I'm sorry, as you said, the government may change the law, but here, not to, and this law is under challenge, this Places of Worship law is under challenge. But in the Ram Janmabhoomi judgment, which is a 5-judge bench, not only do they uphold and positively refer to this act, they also link it, and after this judgment, after this observation, actually at para 83, they refer to S.R. Bombai's judgment, where the Supreme Court said that secularism is a basic feature of the Constitution. So even, I'm
Yes.
sorry, even a subsequent government cannot alter secularism from the Constitution.
In
Supreme
that
Court said
case,
it's a basic feature.
in that case, why would Justice Chandrachud, in early responses, it's the first day, basically, in a sense, prima facie, this could change, say the namaz will also continue, and where the Hindu groups are saying the Shivling has been found, that area will be sealed off. The Muslim groups are objecting to that. In the very acceptance of both the survey, the Supreme Court did not stop it, Sanjoy. Remember, there was a petition to stop this survey. And in his initial responses, it seems that he is not applying the Places of Worship Act in his response.
So let's be a little, since the matter is very sensitive, let's go a little factually. Now, the
Yes.
Supreme Court, this is the same petition. What happened was it was listed for urgent mentioning for the Honorable the Chief Justice of India. And at that stage, the Chief Justice declined to give a stay order in the survey because he said that I don't have the facts before me, I don't have the paper book before me. He listed it before Justice Chandrachud. Justice Chandrachud is hearing the matter, and there are observations being made, and the matter, I'm told, will be again heard tomorrow or day after, whatever. So therefore, it will be a very hasty of us to actually come to a conclusion one way or the other. But I'm not shying away from giving you on my opinion. My opinion is that the act is very clear. The Places of Worship Act is very clear. I'm sorry, the author, Mr. Sharda, who just said any Hindu and any Muslim can walk in and challenge anything. You can't, because the sections of the law, especially if you read section 4, prohibits anyone from filing any case asking for change of the status of these places of worship, which were places of worship on 15th August 1947. So I'm sorry, no one can come. And in this act also, let me hasten to add, it made an exception in section 5 saying Ram Janmabhoomi, Babri Masjid is excluded from this act. And Barkha Dutt,
Can I just come in with one clarification? More details of the proceedings are now appearing,
right.
and the petitioners objected to Justice Chandrachud's use of the word Shivling as a given that it was a Shivling, and the lawyers for the Muslim groups argued, one last request, Your Lordship, you have observed reported to be a Shivling. There's no report. It's only the plaintiff say. Justice Chandrachud says, okay, well, we'll say as indicated in the impugned order. So, Sanjoy, is that important that it's not right now the Supreme Court isn't accepting as a given that it's a Shivling? That's what I'm able to understand from
Okay.
this.
So what the petitioners are saying is that if you say it's a Shivling, then it will be deemed it's a Shivling. Since there is a controversy as to exactly what the structure is, you say alleged structure or as referred to in this particular report, etc. But let me take the bull by the horn. Let us say it is actually Shivling. Now, when the law, which is very clear that the Places of Worship Act says you can't change the status quo, how does it matter? Yes, of course, historical injustice has been done to a community by some people centuries ago. It is in the face of one of the holiest places of worship of Hindus, as with Mathura. But let us be very clear that this act in 1991 did not come in vacuum. It came in a context. There was extreme violence in as a result of one particular movement. We all know what was happening, the Rath
Yeah.
Yatra, etc.
Let,
And
let,
thereafter, the
let me jump
government.
in. Let me jump in now, Sanjoy. Yes, you're right. But as I asked Rahul and Dr. Sharda in the beginning, how far would the BJP willing to go on this issue? Would they be willing to amend this particular law in Parliament? And that's something to come back to discuss. But let me get in Dr. Wahi and Faizur Rahman also now. Dr. Wahi, as a historian, here's the question: the Delhi High Court today, while dismissing a petition on the Qutub Minar, remember they've been called to rename it, actually said that wrongdoing in the past cannot be a basis to sort of make these demands in the present. On the other hand, you have Dr. Ratan Sharda proposing that let there be a Truth and Reconciliation Commission where communities are able to resolve, maybe amicably, a certain decision making, so that the wounds of this nation are not sort of slashed open every few decades. As a historian, ma'am, how do you see this debate?
You see, as a student of history, I wouldn't say that I would call myself a historian. As a student of history, I don't think it's really possible to settle these issues, through negotiations and settlements. What happened in the past, in the decades, in the centuries, in the millennia that's gone by, they were dictated by their own compulsions, their own developments at that point of time. Now, you look at the movement of the coming of the Islam or the spread of the Islam. It spread out of Arabia, in the entire Asia, in the whole of the Asia. It spread beyond it. It even went to Southeast Asia. It came to South Asia. You look at Buddhism, it spread to so many countries. You look at Chola armies, they went to what is now Java, Sumatra, Borneo, Greater India. These are historical developments that took place at a given point of time. We also have to know that these Muslims that are there in India, the first large section of the Indian population, I wouldn't call them Indian, but the people residing in the subcontinent who became Muslims were the untouchables. They were outcasts. They did not have access to water. So, becoming Muslim, they at least acquired some amount of equality. These are the untouchables who became the first Muslims. The second section that became Muslims who adopted Islam were the landed elites. They adopted Islam because they wanted to be part of the state structures. Now, let me tell you something very fascinating. Prithviraj Chauhan fought Muhammad Ghori. Prithviraj's son cooperated with Muhammad Ghori. Prithviraj's brother continued to resist Muhammad Ghori. These are issues that have happened, it has happened world over. There are conflicts, there are movements, there were migrations. Now you can't settle. There were, that there was the, crusades in Europe.
Yeah.
It's not as if these things hadn't happened.
Let,
Now,
let-
can
yeah.
you settle these issues today? And the answer is no. Because these are not the people historically who are responsible for this.
Yes,
One
I
is
think that's
aware that,
important. Sorry, ma'am, I'll just interject and come back to you because you made a very important point. You made a point about history as a kind of living organism where responses and perceptions change basis context, basis the immediate situation, the immediate requirement sometimes of those who are governing, who are ruling, and that's a very very important point. And the other important point is how do you make today's population answerable for what happened eons ago? And this brings me to Faizur Rahman. And how do you believe that Muslim groups could or should be responding at this point? Because again, decontextualization from the larger politics is not possible. But when it came to Ayodhya, there were people, even congressmen. Salman Khurshid recently wrote a book on Ayodhya where he argued that Muslim groups should not have fought. They should have not fought so much over Babri Masjid. They should have actually agreed to have the Hindus, in a sense, take it over. What do you think, Mr. Rahman?
Yeah, in a sense, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hope, yes. See, in a sense, Salman Khurshid was right, that perhaps, in the case of Babri Masjid alone, perhaps Muslim should have negotiated long back. But then we are past that. Now we are come to Gyanvapi, and then in Mathura is on the list. So and it's not just that it's not that the Muslims or some political party or like the Congress or some other party which is linking Muslims to the invaders. It's actually the Hindutva groups which are linking Muslims to the invaders. Like Mr. Sharda was, I would disagree with Mr. Sharda there. And second, in the context of how Muslims should respond, the the place of religious, place of worship act clearly gave us guidelines. Like the lawyer mentioned, forgot his name,
Sanjoy, yes.
yeah, Mr.
Yes.
Sanjoy. See, the Babri Masjid judgment is 1,000+ page judgment. In that, it has a separate section called Section I, which discusses this Places of Worship Act. From pages 116 to 125, 10 full pages of discussion on this act. And in that, after citing this act, the court analyzes, and mind you, the judges of this act, two of the judges are Supreme Court Chief Justices. One is Justice Gogoi and Justice Bobde. And then, of course, we have Justice Chandrachud, who is dealing with the case now. Then there was Ashok Bhushan and Mr. Nazir, Justice Nazir. So, out of the 5 judges, 2 were Chief Justices, and this is what they say. I have analyzed this judgment, particularly for this particular discussion. I went on and analyzed the discussion on the Places of Worship Act, and I could take out 7 points from that, and that should form the basis not just for the Muslims but for all communities in India. Please allow me
And
to
if you
read
had to,
from.
and yeah, just if you could summarize those 7 points
Exactly,
briefly.
I'm going to summarize them. In fact, I'm going, because I just can't read the entire analysis of the court. I'm going to
Yes.
summarize the point. Point number 1, the 5 judges in the Babri Masjid case said, number 1, the Place of Worship Act 1 protects and secures the fundamental values of the Constitution. This must be respected by all. Number 2, it upholds the equality of all religions and secularism, which is a part of the basic features of the Constitution. Number 3, the judges said that the Place of Worship Act imposes a non-derogable obligation towards enforcing a commitment to secularism, non-negotiable completely again. Number 4, it preserves non-retrogression as an essential feature of our secular values. Number 5, it reinforces the fact that the independence was a watershed moment to heal the wounds of the past. How long will be how far will you go back into the past and blame the Muslims or anybody else for the wrongs done by people hundreds of years ago?
Yes.
Number 6, it emphasizes the historical wrongs. It emphasizes that historical wrongs cannot be remedied by the people taking the law into their own hands. Number 7, it emphasizes that history and its wrongs shall not be used as instruments to oppress the present and the future. These 7 points are, the authors of the 7 points are the 5 judges, although we may not know the exact author who authored the judgment.
No,
but
this
the
is
5
a very,
judges collect.
thank you for distilling this for us. I think it's a very interesting and significant analysis. But here's my next question. What if, this is the guidance from the Places of Worship Act, but what if Parliament were to just change this act? And
Absolutely.
hang on, Mr. Rahman. One of the points you said was that the law should not be taken into one's own hands. Now, we are seeing a lot of inflammatory language from UP-based BJP leaders. We have to wait to see what reactions come from the center. And I just want to play out, before I come to Rahul Dev, Dr. Sharda and Sanjoy again, what one of them, Sangeet Som, had to say. Listen in.
ऐसे लोगों को समझाना चाहता हूँ, आप लोग कहते हैं कि ज्ञानवापी मस्जिद के अंदर जो तथाकथित मस्जिद है उसके अंदर नहीं जाने दिया जाएगा। मैं जानता हूँ आप क्यों कहते हैं उसके अंदर नहीं जाने दिया जाएगा। क्योंकि हम जानते हैं कि जब अधिकारी कोर्ट के आदेश पे जो गए हैं, जब अंदर जाएंगे तो वो देखेंगे वहां तो स्वास्तिक बना हुआ है, वहां तो भगवान की मूर्ति लगी हुई है। आप जानते हैं कि जब बाहर लोगों को ये पता लगेगा तो क्या होगा, आप भी जानते हैं, जो 92 में हुआ वो 22 में होगा।
So politics, Rahul Dev, cannot be separated from this at all. And let's not pretend that this is not it is a religious debate, it is a legal debate, but it is also at its heart about politics. So my question is, both Sanjoy and Mr. Rahman have very painstakingly explained this Places of Worship Act to us. Would the BJP push this far enough to change the law if needed? In your analysis of the party, yes.
I think the BJP, from its own, at least some, if not most of its own senior members, as well as its constituency, its supporters would be under pressure to move to challenge and change the Places of Worship Act of 91. Whether it does it, whether the Prime Minister agrees to this is something I don't know. Because this will have international implications also for the image of India and his own government. So I don't know what view will he take and the top leadership of the BJP will take. But we can be certain that the Vishwa Hindu Parishad and the Bajrang Dals and people like Keshav Prasad Maurya or Sangeet Som, who is a known rabble rouser, they will certainly give it fillip to. They will give it certainly make it a bigger issue. They will certainly provoke people into asking for it and creating pressure to change things, change the status quo. So this will happen. This will happen.
And yes, then the Supreme Court can't do anything if that actually happens, or can it? Is the legal point?
No. Hold on. Ultimately, as I see it, this whole issue will go ultimately to the Parliament, because the Parliament made the act. Only Parliament can change the act and bring another act if it wants to, and then the act will be challenged certainly, and it will go to the Supreme Court. So these are the next long-term steps that I see being taken in the future. What the ultimate result will be, we can't say.
Yes. Ratanji, if I can bring you in now, you've heard a range of opinions on this. Sorry, who was wanting to make
I'm Faizur Rahman. Yeah, can I just add just one brief point to that? See, actually, the law that has been challenged, this act has been challenged by a BJP person. It is Ashwini Kumar Upadhyaya is a person who has challenged this act last March, if I'm not wrong, in the Supreme Court, and he's a BJP member. So the BJP a member is already on record challenging this act. They certainly would like to. Perhaps the Ashwini Kumar certainly would like the act to be repealed.
And so this, Mr. Upadhyaya, just for context, is also somebody who petitioned the court for a population sort of control legislation, and he was also spotted in one of the many sort of contentious gatherings, including the one at Jantar Mantar. I think we have those pictures somewhere. We can pull them out to show you. But Dr. Sharda, my question was a political question, and the question is this: the BJP, when it first went from 2 seats to 80+ seats in Parliament, that was on the back of the Ram Janmabhoomi movement that was led at that time by L.K. Advani. There is a belief that ever since the judgment came from Ayodhya, Kashi and Mathura no longer trigger that kind of popular imagination ever since both the demolition and then the judgment. What explains the timing? You understand the right-wing groups. You have supported them ideologically. How do you understand the timing this happening after the UP results?
See, to link everything to UP assembly elections is not a fair analysis, because we have regular elections every 6 months. So every incident can be linked to an election. It can be dislinked to an election. So I will not follow that path. But before I get into other argument, I am very surprised that the honored historian she nearly normalized the conversion of Hindus violently converted or killed by the invaders. I am not just saying Mughals, so many other invaders also include Turks and Mongols. by saying they were voluntary. There are books which tell me that actually the people who become untouchable are the ones who were forced into this kind of profession by the invaders because they refused to bow down. I just talked to Gujarati a week back. I was talking to him. He had wonderful scheduled caste friends who were actually Kshatriyas by the surname, but they were made untouchables. So this kind of normalization of violence against the society is what has actually put Hindus into this kind of mood that they want to challenge every historical narrative which is different from what they have heard, what they know from their own ancient and folk history. That is point one. Point two, we talked about Hindutva groups and all that. You will be surprised that RSS chief about some months back said this is not on the agenda. The Gyanvapi and Mathura is not on the agenda of RSS because so this means that even now there is no interest, there is no statement of the RSS. In fact, RSS has been badgered for saying that Muslims and Hindus have same DNA, and that is a historical fact. The RSS has time and again said that the Muslims who feel they are part of this history, they
What
are
about
part
the
of this
BJP
common
leaders,
heritage.
Dr. Sharda? What about the
Yeah,
BJP leaders,
no,
Sangeet Som,
see, I am
Keshav
not here
Prasad
to defend
Maurya?
BJP. Even if I wish to defend BJP, I will not. If I want to criticize, I will. Because you know,
Okay,
in many debates, I have not always followed the BJP path. I am not a BJP member. I
of
am an
course.
RSS and I am an RSS researcher, and I go by that. And how BJP should behave, their leaders should decide. Just to add to that, I am very sure this amendment to the uh, worship, place of worship act will not happen as far as I can think of in this coming term, because Mr. Modi doesn't fall for populism so easily. Thirdly, so as I said, Hindutva groups, if you are talking of RSS, the main proponent of Hindutva, has continuously said that Muslims are part of our history, our forefathers. Once they agree to that, they are as good as us, they are Hindus, even though they worship as a Muslim. If we don't agree by that statement, we keep on quoting BJP and trying to bring entire Hindutva movement into bad light. That's not a good way of discussion. Thirdly, there is a section 3 of place of worship act which I would like Sanjay to talk about, because a lot of even Muslims who are actually in favor of this Gyanvapi issue, it says nothing contained in subsection 1 and 2 shall apply to any place of worship referred to in the said clause. This is part 3 of the subsection 4, which is an ancient and historical monument or archaeological site, or remains covered by ancient monuments and archaeological sites and remains Act 1958. They
Yes.
claim that the places which are older than 100 years do not fall into this category. I would like Sanjay to clarify on that also. And as I
Yes.
said, if we say history is continuously flowing, definitely it's flowing. And now if we should be honest with the history, even that is not done. Like
Okay.
a historian now said that this is a natural, conversion process. Definitely, it is not something that Hindu society agrees with, because this entire Muslim history written by their own invaders, historians doesn't actually follow that.
Okay.
Why
Let
we are
me.
trying to put paper on paper over these issues rather than face the truth boldly, like people have done in America, people have done in
Okay.
Africa, people have done in Europe. That is a way out.
I would like to, Sanjoy, of course, to respond to this, but Dr. Wahi, I'll let you come in. While we can endlessly debate history, there is some sort of basis in a way to ask historians that a generalized truth, whether it is by the left or the right, is never captures the texture of history. So even when we look at the Mughals, Aurangzeb was not Akbar, and the fact is that we have to be able to recognize that differentiation and call it out. Dr. Wahi, if you'd like to respond.
You see, the point is, Barkha, precisely that I was trying to say is that you have to look at the historic situation. I am saying, he's saying Hindus. Who are Hindus? The term Hindu is used for the first time in a 12th century Persian text. Let him quote, tell me wherever he has found Hindu written anywhere in any text, uh, subcontinental text before the 12th century, number one.
But what does that prove in today's context? What does that prove in today's
What it
context?
means is that the identity of Hindu itself is linked to the coming of the Turkish rulers. I'm trying to say that. Point number two. The untouchables, the Shudras, the Chandelas, they were not Hindus. They were not Hindus. Who says that they are Hindus? Hinduism is based on their exclusion. I am talking as a student of history. I am a Hindu from a Hindu background, and I feel very burdened by carrying this burden on my back that I have, through my family, through my history, been part of this.
Okay.
So,
I will not be able to settle, of course, the historical debate. I am not an academic. I only look at the politics of today, the context of today. And I want to, Rahul, I know you're wanting to respond there briefly. I'll let you respond and then I'll give Sanjoy the last word because we're out of time. Rahul ji, go ahead, please.
No, I'm a little amused by Wahi ji. She's a respected historian. I respect her views also. But I'm amused because when I hear that being a Hindu or Hindu identity is a burden which she's forced to carry. I think we as humans also carry this burden of being a human, and we share all the wrongs that the humanity or any human being has committed in the history. So this is what we call the human condition. We all carry burdens of the past, including the ills of the past.
Yes.
So I don't want to go into that. But
And Barkha, can I give me half a minute for this?
just
I
a
want to
second,
respond to
Rahul,
Sharda.
let Rahul just finish his point.
I am
Just a
carrying the
second,
burden
sir.
of caste system.
All right. I have been talking so far as a citizen and as a journalist who is neither a politician nor a historian or a lawyer. But now I want to express my feelings as a Hindu. Whenever I have visited Ayodhya before this whole thing, before it was demolished, or the Gyanvapi temple or Kashi Vishwanath and Mathura, I have felt hurt. So far as because both are the three of the most sacred places for Hindus, and as a Hindu, it hurt me to see the birthplace of Ram, the birthplace of Krishna, and Gyanvapi having back-to-back adjacent or mosque built above. Clearly, this was wrong. But I never was in favor of a long kind of movement that was built around it. These things can be solved only by two ways, either legally in the courts or through by the communities coming together and resolving things together.
Okay.
Creating movements on it and playing politics is the surest way to destroy things, destroy the brotherhood.
Can I say something now, Barkha?
Yes, Mr. Rahman. And then I really do have to end with Sanjoy.
Yeah, of course. I'd like to correct Mr. Sharda on the truth part of it. He talked about truth and reconciliation. Reconciliation can come, but the truth part of it, I'm referring to a book by Tony Joseph called Early Indians, the story of our ancestors and where they came from. According to his research, all of us in India today, Hindus and Muslims, are all outsiders. The Muslims came about 1,400 years ago in 630 CE, whereas the Aryans and the Austro-Asiatic migrants, as he called them, they came about in 2000 BCE, about 4,000 years ago. So it's just and all of us, all the people in India today are part of what he calls, out of Africa migrants who all came to India 65,000 years ago.
Okay.
So therefore, as far as we Indians are concerned, we all came from outside. It's a matter of time when the Hindus came and when the Muslims came.
Okay. Dr. Sharda, very briefly, please. I really do have to close with Sanjoy. Dr. Sharda.
Mr. Tony is not even an archaeologist or a historian. He was a journalist turned historian and DNA expert by some of the progressives. Actually, the Harvard University study and many other studies clearly show that DNA of Indians for at least last 40,000 years are same across India. I will close my argument here because there are other things to talk about. So I'll close.
Okay. I want to actually because I am not a historian, I want to be forward-looking and see and think about what may happen. Dr. Wise, ma'am, sorry, what are you saying? I am
saying I'm carrying the burden of the caste system. I am not carrying the burden of being a Hindu. Please understand it.
Okay. Fair enough. Let's move on and close with Sanjoy. Sanjoy, let's look at, a number of questions have been raised for you about the exceptions within the act itself. If you'd like to close with that thought.
Yeah, so quick word. The exception doesn't apply. The exception is only when you when the archaeological department decides to declare a protected monument and where it can't allow certain kind of activities. Like, for example, there's still namaz going on in Taj. The archaeological survey may well tomorrow say that, sorry, the building is being damaged. We won't allow any more namaz in the Taj Mahal complex. Now, ending it, you have a short of time. On 10th of September 1991, am I audible?
Yes, yes, please go ahead.
On 10th September 1991, when the Home Minister introduced this bill, this law, and he said that this is actually a reflection of the cultural heritage of for which every Indian is justifiably proud, and that heritage is tolerance of all faiths that characterized our great civilization since time immemorial. So therefore, this is a bill, this is a law which is a symbol of our tolerance. So let us see what the new Home Minister does. This was the Home Minister of 1991.
Okay.
The jury is out.
Okay, we'll have to see what the court does, what the court says.
Tolerance is to the state, it cannot be the state. Thank you.
Okay. All right. We leave it there. Thank you very much, Ratan, Sharda, Dr. Wahi, Dr. Sharda, Rahul ji, to Mr. Rahman, and to Mr. Sanjoy Ghose. This is an issue that will remain alive. It is going to be in the court. Dr. Sharda very interestingly thinks in his analysis it will not make it back to Parliament, not at least in this term. So it's going to be up to the courts, if that's the case, to make a early judgment by the standards of Indian sort of adjudication. And so we'll have all of you back very soon. Thank you. Thank you for many things, but in particular, thank you for such a calm and civil conversation about an issue that is so sensitive and so volatile. I'm especially grateful to our panelists for that. Thank you very much, everybody. And as the last word comes from our audience, a good discussion by sensible panel members. So thank you very much. Goodbye and see you soon. Thank you. It's great to see you here. Thank you for watching our work. If you haven't subscribed yet, don't forget to click the bell icon and subscribe to Mojo Story and support independent, robust journalism.